Max Verstappen had a lot to say about the lack of pace from the RB20, as it seems like the three-time world champion is not going to tolerate the mentality that has somehow plagued the team that hoped it would win both of the championships with ease. But with Norris now 62 points behind Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, and with McLaren just 8 points behind Red Bull in the Constructors category, could the Austrian team see themselves drop the lead in both categories? And if so, what is the message that Verstappen sent that would definitely ring the alarm bells in Milton Keynes? One of the biggest mysteries in Formula One is the downfall of Red Bull, and from a car that was highly competitive in the first 5 races of the season to one that has barely made it onto the podium, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez are now in a situation that no other driver would like to be in. While the threat in the Drivers' Championship is probably coming from one side only, which is Norris, that cannot be said for the Constructors category, where Red Bull is at a risk of dropping P3 as soon as the next 2 races, which are Baku and Singapore. And Verstappen himself has stated that something needs to change very soon in the team because he's not going to tolerate such a performance in the following period. When talking after the race in Monza, the 3-time world champion was visibly furious, as we could have easily drawn a conclusion from the race as well, with him saying, "It was just another dramatic race. Nothing was running. The car was not running at all. I didn't like the strategy at all, and the pit stop was absolutely crap. We had to drive with less power, so basically everything went wrong. Where we drove didn't matter anyway, but you still tried to drive your best race. With our 2 stoppers, that was definitely not the case. On both hard and medium tires, we were too slow. The way things are going, we are not going to win any more races, but it is what it is." As of now, Verstappen has gone winless in 6 consecutive events, with his last race win coming in Barcelona, and the 3-time world champion has also stated that in May and June he won a couple of races that he realistically shouldn't have won, implying the win in Spain as well as the ones in Imola and Canada. Whether or not these would make the difference in the Drivers' Championship, combined with the poor strategies of McLaren in Hungary and the Woking-based squad effectively taking 7 points off the lead from the leading driver, time will tell. But as of now, it's obvious that Red Bull is nowhere near close to winning races. This has been the talking point of the past couple of months, and many believe that the Austrian team has what it takes to turn their fortunes around in Monza due to the nature of the track, a low downforce one, without a lot of curbs that the RB20 had to attack. But the understeer and oversteer combination continued here as well, and Verstappen has complained that the car just doesn't like to turn or to respond to his inputs, similar to how it behaved in Zandvoort, meaning that all of the data they've gathered from the Dutchman's home GP has been in vain. This might be one of the primary reasons why he's not feeling particularly happy with the car and the team as well, because according to Max, the problems have been present ever since the Miami GP, but nobody wanted to address them properly. This is something that his father, Jos, has also reflected on, saying that while Max was winning races, nobody really cared about whether or not the car had the balance that his son was requesting, as they thought that the glory runs from Max would continue the way they did. But the 3-time world champion has sent a fierce warning to his team, as he stated, "It is up to the team to come up with a lot of changes to the car because we basically went from a very dominant car to an undrivable car in the space of 6 to 8 months. That is very weird to me, so we need to turn the car upside down. But it doesn't matter with how we are at the moment. We are bad everywhere and need a lot of changes. We have to go from our own fortunes, and today this whole weekend has been very bad, but I'm not worried about the championship. We were weak on a lot of fronts." Interestingly enough, this is not the only message that Verstappen had towards his team when it comes to the activeness of certain members, as the slow pit stop of more than 6 seconds in a stationary position, which caused Verstappen to smash the steering wheel twice out of anger, has likely provoked the message that he said to his race engineer, as Max said, "Can the people in the background please be awake? I know this is a tough position, but it's important." While the position that Verstappen gained on the track was thanks to Russell's poor entrance of turn 1 and the damages sustained on his front wing, Horner's latest change of behaviour is clearly an indicator of Red Bull's woes. The Brit has gone from a non-panic mode to one in which he admitted that the team clearly has no idea where the underperformance is coming from, and when addressing the situation, the 50-year-old stated, "We ran an older spec in Zandvoort to see if that redressed any of the issues at all. The reality was we still had the same handling characteristics and issues. So that's given an awful lot of data for the guys, but a lot to get our heads around. We need to address it quickly because McLaren have made a significant step over the last few races. We are now behind Ferrari and Mercedes in Monza as well." To make things more unpredictable, it looks like Perez is not satisfied with the car at all, and when you see both Max and Sergio very close to each other in both qualifying and race pace, it is a clear indicator that Red Bull might have fallen down to be a midfield team after being so competitive in the first half of the season. Nobody expected this to be such a close race in the ending 8 stages of the season, especially with 3 sprint races to go, but it seems like this has been predicted by Max a couple of months ago. It's just that nobody wanted to listen to him back then. Elaborating on this situation to a greater extent, Jos Verstappen, the father of the leader of the championship as of now, went on to say, "We didn't expect the gap to be that big. It was a huge disappointment in Zandvoort. Max is definitely combative, but after the race he was fairly done about it, especially because Red Bull just didn't get it right. At the beginning of the season, where you win races, then of course it all feels right, but Max also said then that the balance is not right. Of course, that was not brought out at the time. The team tried to keep it inside. Max complained about the car's balance about 3 months ago, only they didn't really believe it, or they didn't really see it. Now you're actually a bit too late." Many believed things would be turned in Monza due to the nature of the track, but Max Verstappen was definitely not part of this flock, as the 3-time world champion has had his own belief that the car cannot be turned magically upside down and added performance to. When addressing the race forecast for Monza, Max didn't really hold back words about the RB20, as he said, "If you already have balance problems over 1 lap during a qualifying session, they're not suddenly solved in the race. It can go downhill fast if it continues like this, but that is what I have always said. The engineers in Red Bull certainly listen to me, but it is very difficult to find a solution. I think they are listening, but they don't really know what to do yet. That is the problem." Red Bull have barely scored 12 points in Monza, and compared to the 34 of McLaren, it means that the gap has now shredded down to just 8 points between these two teams in the Constructors Championship. As all things stand, it seems like Ferrari's ready to join the fight too, as with the 37 points that they've picked up from Leclerc and Sainz's win, the team is now just 39 points behind Red Bull and headed to 2 races that are going to suit the SF24 much more than the RB20, Baku and Singapore. Paradoxically enough, this helps Max a lot more because it means that Norris will have it a lot harder to win races due to the competitiveness from his teammate Piastri as well as the challenge of Ferrari. And now Vasseur doesn't really look like a madman when he predicted that his team is still in the fight for the championship regardless of the downturn in performance from Barcelona onwards. With all this in mind, do you think that Verstappen's words are truly something that should make Red Bull worry about the remainder of 2024 as well as 2025 when everything restarts from zero and the team's competitiveness shall remain the same? Let us know in the comments below.